I know it's my greatest failure as a writer. I did my best to show what it might be like to be a North Korean. I tried everything I knew to try and get people to think what it would be like for 10 minutes to be a North Korean. The misery, the pointlessness, the horror, the crushing nothingness of being, and the deprivations and the humiliations that would be involved. I know I couldn't do it. I know I failed. But it taught me one thing. It answered a question I'd had since I was very small. I used to wonder what paradise would be like as described by my preachers and tutors. They said, well, it'll be eternal praise. You get all the time to praise. You sing praises the entire time to someone who, in creating you, was doing only what came naturally. I used to think, that sounds like hell to me. But I used to think also, but fortunately, a bit like hell, I couldn't quite imagine it. Now I can. Now I've been to a state where that's the case. Now I've been to where eternal praise is mandatory. Now I've seen a state. It has a dear leader and a great leader, as probably you know. The great leader, the dear leader, as perhaps you don't know, is not in fact the president of North Korea. He's only the head of the party and of the armed forces. His late father is still the president. Thus we have a necrocracy. Or you might say a mausolocracy, or a thanatocracy. And you may notice also only one short of a trinity. And that's what you have to praise from dawn till dusk. So now I know what it would be like. But there's this one exception. You can get out of North Korea. You can die. And it's over. You can't do that with monotheism. They've only just started with you. Well, you laugh. I'm trying to make you cry, and you laugh. Imagine how I feel. In the Old Testament, you find, as I say in my book in one or two chapters, you find the warrant for racism, genocide, slavery, witch burning, mutilation of infants, and all the rest of it. That's all mandated. But not just praised, but mandated. It's pretty rough, notoriously rough. But when the earth closes over you after these treatments, that's it. There's no talk of punishing the dead. Not until gentle Jesus, meek and mild, late of Nazareth, or arguably Bethlehem, is the idea of eternal torture for children who die unbaptized or in other ways unredeemed introduced into our culture. Thus I make my central, what I think is my central point. Religion is not just untrue and an obvious man-made falsification. I think there's no one who doesn't essentially know that. But there are many people, many atheists, who say they can't believe it, but they wish they could. It would be nice to believe it. No, it wouldn't. It would be the wish for an absolutely impermeable dictatorship that couldn't even be criticized, let alone overthrown, that went on forever, that supervised and invigilated your every waking moment and would not stop torturing you even after you were dead. To wish this to be true is to wish to be a slave. It is an immoral belief. I know that Daniel Dennett said something like this to you or some of you once before, because I heard him do it. He's a great friend of mine. Professor Stephen Weinberg, one of our greatest biologists, made the, I think, very cool and laconic observation. In an average, ordinary, moral, universal moral society, people of goodwill will do such good as they can, and those who are sociopathic or psychopathic will do as much evil as it seems to them possible to do. But if you want to get good people to do wicked things, you need religion. Who of average moral sensibility would mutilate the genitals of a child, for example? Would say, here, I've had a baby. A gift from God, perhaps, who is, by the way, a perfect designer. And what could be a better instance, if you felt that, than looking at a newborn? Maybe there is a perfect design at that. But on the other hand, if we sawed away at the genitalia with a sharp stone, it might look a bit better. And anyway, that's what it tells you to do. It's enough to make a cat laugh, isn't it? It would be if it wasn't so appalling, so obscene, so tragic, and so nasty. To blow yourself up in an old people's home in Netanya on Passover is to commit an action that will be praised from minarets and along the electronic media by evil old mullahs every day. No such action could be possibly endorsed by a person of average morality, if it were not endorsed supernaturally. I'm sure everyone here can think of their own favourite example. And so I probably would be trespassing on your time if I went on any further, but I get the impression that, kind of view as it is to come to celebrate my birthday and all, that probably it wouldn't have been quite like this a couple of years ago. I think there's a change in the zeitgeist going on, and I have every reason to think that what I say is correct. Professors Dawkins and Dennett, who I've both mentioned, and Sam Harris, who I could add, my other musketeer, have all found in the recent past that there's a large audience now for a bit of a resistance to clerical bullying and religious lecturing and self-righteousness and nastiness and menace. That we've had about enough of all this. Open a page of any newspaper and just see what you get. His Holiness the Pope, having just repudiated limbo after a long struggle, the place where the souls of unbaptized children always went, apparently was never there. Tell it, no, but it's serious. Tell it to the parents of those children. I've met them. The people who thought that's where their poor kids had gone, having died before they could breathe properly, that's where they thought they were. It was real to them. What casuistry is this to say, oh, it wasn't really real after we made that bit up? They can't do this. It was real. It was a real place for those parents. And for the brothers and sisters of those children, too. They wept at the thought of where the little one had gone. And to say, oh, never mind. By the way, we were wrong about this, but we're now ready to be infallible all over again. This is disgusting. And in the same week as he does this, the Pope repeats that we need to teach the children more about hell. Go back again to terrify the composure of the young and the innocent with these horrifying stories told them by maladjusted elderly virgins. This is wicked. This is wickedness. And we know the consequences of that, which are described in my book as follows, because I render it in Latin. No child's behind left. Crimes are committed that none of us would think of committing, but are allowed to those of faith. And AIDS in Africa, says His Holiness, may be bad, but nothing like as bad as a condom. This is not morality. Meanwhile, our Supreme Court refuses to say, as it should, that not one American dollar can be used ever for the establishment of the Jewish religion on the west bank of the Jordan River. We will not have people who want to bring on Armageddon and the Messiah. We will not treat them as friends or as allies. We should recognize them as enemies, those who look forward eagerly to the destruction of our species and our world. That Danish cartoonist can't do his job in Copenhagen without being threatened with death, and his nation's tiny economy and democracy threatened with violence and coercion is bad enough. That not one American news outlet would reprint those cartoons out of sheer fear. Sheer fear and cowardice is worse. And that Borders Books should pull from the magazine rack, the only magazine that I write for, it's called The Free Inquiry, I recommend it to you, would say, oh, well, we know what to do about that, we're not selling it, is even worse. How much more of this are we going to put up with? That people will come and say, we insist on teaching pseudoscience to your children in American schools with taxpayers' money. What is this? Children, the astronomy class is over. Can you now get ready for the astrology period? They want equal time? They don't want equal time. They want a dictatorship of pseudoscience and garbage. The chemistry class is over, but after the break, we'll be doing alchemy. Unless, on a condition that I propose, since George Bush in his wisdom, the man who said that Vladimir Putin is a good man because he wears a crucifix round his neck in a strong field, the stupidest thing the president has yet said, a man of faith, says that the faith-based initiative may give government money to churches, the government looks after the state looks after the rich, the churches can look after the poor, and tax breaks are given to religious institutions, very well equal time, all right, equal time. All of those churches in receipt of subsidy or tax break must now teach evolution half the time in their Sunday schools and their religious services, and distribute the literature in their church porches.
Is that what they want? I doubt it, but don't fail to take them up on it, because that's what I'm talking about. We have to fight back now. We have the consolations of humour and irony, and we have a better tradition than they do. It goes back to Democritus and Epicurus.